lesson today, we're going to look at two special rules or ways we can find special products when we're multiplying polynomials. You're still able to use all the methods that we've learned previously or the ways to multiply previously, but these are just two special rules that can come in handy, and it's going to be important down the line to make sure we understand these rules, because it's also going to help us when we factor. So please write down your essential question, and as we work through our practice problems and do our lesson on this, I want us to use these rules, okay? And we'll talk more about that in class. Okay, our first special rule that we're going to talk about is called the sum and difference pattern. And so that's really important because you're going to see that one binomial is going to be a sum, an addition, and the other one is going to be a difference, a subtraction. Okay, so this is the definition of the rule. This is the algebraic definition. It says that if I have two terms, A and B, that I'm adding together, multiplied by the same two terms but subtracted, see, the sum and a difference, they are the same terms. Okay, that's really key. They have to be the same terms. Then instead of having to FOIL or use a box method, we simply can square the first term, square the second term, and put a subtraction sign. So we don't have to go through a long way of multiplying that. But what I do want you to see, though, why we get that. If I were to use my FOIL method, I would get A squared minus A times B plus A times B minus B squared. And so if you see right here, those like terms in the middle cancel out, and it's still A squared minus B squared. So if we recognize this, we can save ourselves a little bit of work. Okay, here's another example. If I do x plus 10 times x minus 10, I have the same terms. One is adding, one is subtracting. So all we have to do is square the x squared, square the 10, which would be 100, and put a minus sign in the middle. And that's the product. Here's one that's maybe a little bit different, a little bit more complicated. If I have 2x plus 1 times 2x minus 1. Again, I have the same terms. One is adding, one is subtracting. So all I have to do is square each term. Now I want you to think about it. If we square 2x, what do we get? We should get 4x squared. And if we square the 1, then we just get 1. So 4x squared minus 1. Sum and difference pattern. Okay, the second rule is called square of a binomial. And it means just that. We're squaring a binomial. Okay? So this is our definition. If I have A plus B squared, it's a binomial squared. Scoot over the lip just a little bit. Okay, so I was listening, there was an announcement, sorry. So basically what we're going to do here is we're going to square our first term, A squared. We're going to square our last term, B squared. We're going to find the product of the two terms, A times B, and then multiply it by 2, 2AB. This rule, I don't love it as much. But the key thing here that we want to remember is that when we have a square of a binomial, no matter how we do it, we need to make sure that we get a product that is a trinomial. The product is a trinomial, and that's where we make a mistake on this one when we don't use the rule. If it was subtraction, a minus b squared. Again, we square the first term, and we're going to write these words down in just a second. We square the last term, and if we square something, it's always positive. We find their product, so in this case, it would be negative a times b, and then we multiply it by 2. So negative 2ab. So the only difference between the rules is that if it's adding, we have a plus on our middle term. If it's subtraction, we have subtraction on our middle term. Okay, so let me write down those steps that I was kind of talking you through. So number 1, we square the first term. Number 2, we square the second term. Okay, and this is kind of just how I like to do the order. And then 3, we find the product of the two terms and multiply by 2. Okay. Let me give you an example. If I have x minus 7 squared, okay, if we use our rule, we're going to square the first term, x squared. We're going to square the last term, positive 49. We're going to find the product of the two terms, which would be negative 7x. And we're going to multiply it by 2. So it would be negative 14x. And that would be our product. If you were not going to use this rule, very important, what I want you to see is that if you were not going to use this rule, you would have to rewrite x minus 7 squared as x minus 7 times x minus 7. Okay? The biggest mistake that we make on this is that we want to apply the exponent to the x and the 7. And you cannot do that. Okay, there we have learned no exponent rules that allow us to apply that exponent. X minus 7 squared means x minus 7 times x minus 7. And then we have to go through a whole different way of multiplying that. We could FOIL it, or we learned how to use the box method as well. Okay, I'm going to give you one more. This one is, in fact, I'm going to give you 2. Okay, I want you to do this one. It's going to be a little bit harder because it has more than one variable, but you can do it. I want you to try to do that one on your own using the rule. And then I'm going to give you a second one. That is our sum and difference pattern. And I want to, and we'll just, this is your entrance ticket. And we'll look at your answers. Make sure that you're showing your work. Okay, because I want to see evidence that you're using the rule, not that you're using foiling or box to get the answer.